you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking Nerf herder.
Who's scruffy-looking?
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Nerf Herders. I'm your host, Corsic9, and today I'm joined by Trogdor.
Howdy.
And Garrick Versio.
Hello.
And if we're lucky, maybe Doty's going to join us in a little bit. So we're partway through round 2 so far. Not too many games have been played, but I'm going to go ahead and read those scores real quick. So for team putting the Nor and NorCal versus the 42nd Angry Zogi, Jackson Maki played Adam Angry Ewok already. They played a really tight game. It was 218 to 174 in Maki's favor. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to get to play Zog. He's having technical difficulties, so he's probably going to have to concede. Scott is traveling and Ben is traveling, so they haven't played yet. Andy Arkwelder versus the 42nd Gecko. They played. Andy won 215 to 142. That was kind of a Scum 134 versus an MSU with some squads, and Andy was able to come out on top there. Team Huge versus 46 Dice has only played one game, and that was Justin Pryor versus Maturin. Maturin's MC40's kind of ran into some trouble. He lost his flag, and he went down, and it ended up as a 9-2. I don't think the score on here is counting the victory tokens. And then Best Coast versus Rick and Mortis. Brian Klaus beat Luke out 452 to 206, so that was a big win. Pi 4155 lost to Verified Tax Evader 134 to 170 for a 6-5. Michael Muster beat Nicholas Williams 10 to 1, 440 to 40 points. And then Team 67 versus T and Villainy. The matchups aren't on here, but we do know one matchup, and it's being billed as the game of the year. That's going to be Wobble versus Burpee, and that's happening on Saturday. And I think we're going to talk about that a little later in the episode, or we could talk about it now if we want to.
Yeah, we can go ahead now.
Okay. All right. I'll read the lists. Quirky is running Plo Koon on an Architon's escort cruiser with Surrogator as a title. He's got a Venator 2 with weapons, liaison, veteran gunners, reserve hangar deck, thermal shields, Zixi 7s, rapid reloads, and triumphant. He's got a Pelta Medical with Ahsoka, Officer, and Expanded Hangar. And his squadrons are Shadow Squadron, which is a V-Wing, 3 ARC 170s, 4 regular V-Wings, and 2 LATs. And we already went over Wobble's last episode, but just in case you didn't listen to that, you should, but just in case you didn't, he's running 3 Interdictor combat refits. So he's got Admiral Mahdi, disposable capacitors, leading shots, battle cruiser, and quad battery turrets. And then the other 2 are the same, but no Mahdi, obviously. And then he has Colonel Jendon, Darth Vader, Tel Travura, and Tempest Squadron. And I think they're doing some shenanigans too after they finish the main match. I think they're are they bringing in like 600 points of reinforcements or something and carrying on the battle.
Yes. No squadrons, so 600 points of ships, any faction, and it will go to round 12. So they will still officially end their tournament portion in round 6. And then I think we can expect Wobble to bring his Imperial Warlords faction. Very curious what Quirky will bring. Probably Separatist, if I were to guess, which will be funny to have Republic and Separatist fighting together.
Well, that'll be fun and interesting. Unfortunately, I probably won't get to watch much of it live, so I'll have to rely on the tournament report, or hopefully somebody records it and puts it on YouTube or something.
Quirky's list I was looking at for the first time, and it's interesting. It's not obvious to me because I don't see any like command token generation. So the Pelta medical frigate, he has Ahsoka on an expanded hangar base, so it can activate 4 squadrons, or 3 squadrons natively. So, oh wait, Ahsoka is limited to 3, right? Okay, I'm misremembering her card. So he's got 4 V wings, so 3 of those can get sniped. I guess anything can get sniped, but those seem like the obvious platforms because they're fast enough. And then they can get their reroll when they're at distance 1 of one of the LAATs, LATs. Think of his Venator build though. Like I thought Venators really needed like command tokens or Bell or something, but this doesn't have any of that. And then it has the Triumphant title too. So thermal shields will do a lot, but without tranquility, I don't know. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think Wobble's squadrons can probably tie up Burpee squadrons long enough for Wobble to take down the Venator.
Yeah, it looked like in last week's game he was able to get all 3 interdictors kind of like on target, and then having salvo. Because yeah, they have the salvo token with the battlecruiser title. Yeah, I think they can put out a lot of damage. Even because with thermal shields, it just goes from 4 to 2 dice, so it's not a big difference in this fleet. You can burn out thermal shields pretty quickly if you actually use it. So it's kind of it feels a little bit like getting shot by MSU in this one because it's like 4 dice at a time. I mean, with quad battery turrets, it might be 5, depending on what he does. They do have Squadron 2. Let's see, he's got Vader Defender that has Rogue. Oh, Tell has Rogue. Okay, so really he doesn't really need to push squads much. He's got Jindin and Tempest. So if he positions well, he really doesn't need to activate squadrons at all. Think I would put my money, at least in the first 6 rounds, on Wobble having the advantage. Now, if Quirky can outplay him with his squads, I think he can take out 1 or 2 Venators. I don't know. It just kind of depends on if he gets lucky enough with his squad damage. Because what does he have? He's got 3 Arc 170s, and 2 of the Lats. Those are double blue. So even if you don't use the salt, because I'm not sure if you want to raid his list, it really just depends on like if he's doing anything super obvious with those. I'm not sure what, like if he's going to be con firing or navigating or trying to do repair. So I think you'd want the damage on those more than the raid. Now rounds 7 through 12, I have literally no idea because like Wobble only hinted at what he's bringing, and I haven't heard anything from Quirky. So like, I don't even know what faction he'll actually bring. I think that's going to be the most interesting part of that game is the second half. I might have to try to like actually watch that part when I have time.
I fully expect that to just be extreme chaos.
I want to know their rules for when the reinforcements arrive. Are those going to be in their deployment zones, or are those going to be like at distance something of their own ships? Because like that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's true.
It hurts my heart that they're saying no squadrons with the reinforcements. That is improper Armada, but it's their game, and that'll probably also save a lot of time since you're effectively playing a 12 round, 1,000 point game.
Oh yeah, it's gonna take them forever in the first place.
Yeah, that is hard to play very quickly. Yeah, and he has Defender Vader, and I do want to correct from last episode when I was not here. My name was slandered. It was said that I have Defender Vader. I do not. I have the better Vader in the TIE Advance.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. because my list is for the Nexus meta, and so last week I only lost by what was it 8-3,
Yeah, it was 8-3.
and this week I technically won 8-3 because my team has the bye, so I'm solidly even. So maybe the next 2 rounds I can get some big wins. I just really hope my matchups are, what I was hoping for when I built the list.
Yep.
All
Well, do
right.
you want to
Well,
talk a little bit about Empire stuff? We
yeah.
talked about some of the Nexus Empire stuff when we talked about your list before, but there were some things we didn't talk about. So
We realized there's not a lot of Empire stuff left that Nexus has done, and so it wouldn't take a lot to finish it up. So I'll go with Squadrons first. So we talked about the TIE Brute and the Seventh Sister. And then the other ace that we did for the Inquisitors is the Grand Inquisitor, of course. So he is the same speed 4 and 5 hull with 3 blue anti-squad and 1 black anti-ship. He has Adept 1, a brace, and an evade, 15 points. And his ability is while attacking a unique squadron, you may set 1 die to any face. I have not flown him yet because I want him to have 4 dice against squads or some sort of buff. I have not convinced anyone of that yet because other people have flown him and they thought he was good. Obviously, it's matchup dependent, just same as the Seventh Sister. She's just more defensive against the unique squadrons, which suits me better. But I don't think he's bad. He's niche. I think we mentioned with Empire squads, they have such good options that it is tempting to make them really powerful. The goal is not to make anything actually on the level of existing content from the base game, but to make it like an interesting option.
Right.
I guess a bit like Vader Advanced versus Vader Defender is currently. And then the other squadron, one of the earliest Nexus designs, I was not here for this one. This was before I joined Nexus. I think it was wrapping up when I joined. They did the Alpha class Starwing. That one is a bomber with scout, and it is speed 3, hull 5, 2 red and a blue anti squad, and 2 red anti ship for 14 points. This one gets some interesting reactions because of the theoretical capability of what it could do, depending on how well you can fly it. So far, no one has really been able to break it. I think it's gotten some tweaks. It may have gone up in points. Scout is good in theory. It mostly helps you add your deployment, but it's really hard to deploy it far ahead and then not activate it because it doesn't have rogue. I do want to see if someone can do. So what was done to me with hyperspace rings in the Republic was they had boosted comms and flight commander, and they jumped a Venator like speed 3 and alpha striked me on turn 1 and wiped a bunch of my squads off the board when I was not expecting that. So I want to see if someone can do that with the Starwing, but no one has. If anyone's tried it yet, it's a bit of one of those things where, like, once it happens, like you can kind of plan around it a little bit better, and not allow it to happen as easily. And then for the ace, we have Lieutenant Kursabi. He's got the same stats as the generic with 2 braces, 19 points, and his special ability is during your activation while attacking a ship, if there is at least 1 friendly non-unique squadron with bomber at distance 1 of you, you may add 1 red die to your attack pool. So if you have a generic with bomber, you get 3 red anti-ship, which also seems really strong, but again, we try to nerf only based on like testing data, and a big part of these is I don't think people use them a lot because I do think they're a little hard to get to go off, but I think someone should be able to get good use out of them. There's some obvious counterplay to them. They're a little pricey, so I don't know if they fit into most Imperial squad balls. And
I think
then
that's part of the issue is that the cost versus the potential output of them is not good
yeah,
enough, I guess.
and they're not very good against squads. 2 red and a blue. So like, I mean, they could do 5 damage, but red dice don't normally do that.
We
And then the
talked
last,
about this. Oh, we talked about this a little bit last time, where the Imperial faction is in a point where the squads are so good that designing new ones, we can't make amazing squads. So instead, we try to make squads that have a niche use case, but aren't going to be viable in every squad ball. Maybe I just wanted to note that that these were kind of
yeah,
in that niche zone that we strive for.
the last one of those is the non-token ace Rose Squadron, and it loses bomber and keeps scout and gets snipe 3, and it's still speed 3 and 5 hull. Anti-squad though, it gets red, blue, black, and anti-ship it gets red and black to make up for not having bomber, and is 17 points. So it's your second option for snipe in the faction. Up until now, the TIE Brute is there, but it was developed later, which is something we've gone to now, where we try to develop the generic and then the ace, and then if it comes up, we can do a non-token ace. But there was a long time where people would jump in and try to come up with aces and non-token aces immediately for squadrons. Just it can get a little bit like first come first serve, so you want to get in immediately. And there's always interesting ideas, but we found they don't always like match what is needed. Same with ship titles. We just hold back on those, and then when people test them, they normally come up with ideas that are a lot better than what we theorized it would need. So I think that's all the squadrons for Empire that we've done.
They only got one ship, correct?
Yes, a single variant Lancer. We decided, or they decided. I think this was also before I joined Nexus. They decided on one variant because it was really hard not to overlap too much with other ships and have one just be the obvious choice. And for a while, obviously, the Interdictor has that where one is obviously better than the other, but we didn't want to do that with a ship. We try to avoid it. So the Lancer was, the goal behind it is, what if you don't want to take a lot of squadrons? Can you take a ship that can fill that role and do anti-squad for you? And the answer is yes, but also it turns out this also has a tendency to buff 134 rather than being an alternative to it. So there are some few matchups where the 134 with the Lancer or 2 are really good, but the Lancer is not very good anti-ship. So typically the trade-off is enough that it's not outperforming anything, at least again in Nexus. So the Lancer class escort frigate, it's only got 4 hull, brace, evade, and redirect, 1 command, 1 squadron, and 3 engineering. It can go speed 3. It's only got a single blue out the front and rear, and then the sides have 2 blue and a red, 2 shields in all the hull zones. It can equip 2 offensive retrofits and a turbo laser, and then it has the flak is the main focus of the ship, so it has red and blue flak, 45 points. So it's already some of the best flak, I think, in the game, without counting upgrades on it. It just has the patrol tag, so no bombard. So if it takes LTT, it's not rerolling its only red into ships, which is not a big loss anyway. It shouldn't be shooting ships. The titles it came with are what kind of push it into different directions you can go. It's all anti-squad. So Pulsar, you gain 1 ordnance icon in your upgrade bar, but you can only equip 1 offensive retrofit. And then at the end of the squadron phase, you may attack 1 enemy squadron at distance 1 with your printed anti-squadron armament, and you cannot add dice to this attack.
I just did a quick look over all of the tournament lists, and it looks like we have 5 Imperial players, including yourself, Garrick. And of those, everyone except for you did take a Lancer. So I thought
Really?
that was kind of interesting that you are the lone Lancer hater. And I was curious if you could say
I,
why you hate the Lancer.
I actually took it in the last team tournament a year ago, and I do still like this ship. I ran it, but I ran it with disposable capacitors, and it surprisingly, I had 2 of them, I think, and it really surprisingly annoyed my opponent that these were both throwing a bunch of blues at long. They then vaporized both Lancers, so like I think it was okay. I didn't win with it, but yeah, now I don't know. I don't take a dedicated flak boat. I like my squadrons, and then I like my ships to do ship things.
Fair.
So
fair.
a ship that wants to do squadron things just feels weird.
Other observations. Of those 5, 4 of them, including you, are running a 134. So we have 4 out of 5 Imperial 134s. The remaining Imperial is running 0 squadrons. It is Pinky Pyro running a Star Dreadnought Assault and a Lancer with a shitload of flak boosting stuff. To
Oh,
your
that's
point,
funny. I do not want to run into that.
it's a very feast or
Um,
famine
oh,
list.
So,
yeah, at least someone, got the memo that this is for squadless lists.
so I
Yeah,
think one of the most efficient ways to run it is what my teammate and friend Scott is doing. He's got an ISD2 with Gerard and the normal ISD2 stuff, basically. He's got the Lancer. He's got a Gazanti. And this is his squad ball. I'll read the squad ball before I read the Lancer. He's got Vader Defender, Merrick Steel, Boba Fett, Jendon, Gamma Squadron, and 3 generic TIE bombers. The Lancer has Agent Callus, AG-2G quad laser cannons, Blue Hawk, and Ruthless Strategist. So the idea is the Lancer, between the Lancer, Flak, and his aces, he's going to delete your squad ball, and then his aces and those generics are going to bomb the crap out of your ships, and then the ISD2 is going to mop it up. And I think if you're playing into a 134, I think it's very effective because either you're going to have to dive in and attack his squad ball in the flak range of the Lancer, or you're going to have to hold your squads back from being attacked by his squads, and then he can bomb your ships. So, and I've seen the Lancer just absolutely shred squad balls. The thing is ridiculous.
Trogdor, do you see like what titles people are running on these other 4 Lancers?
Yeah, so 4 people. Let me scroll quickly. So there are 4 Lancers. First one is running Blue Hawk. Second one is running Furious. Third one is running Blue Hawk again, and the fourth one is running Blue Hawk a third time. So 3
Oh,
Blue Hawks and a Furious.
okay. I was hoping that we get all 3. Yeah, I mean, Pulsar seems like it could be pretty good though because it gives you that ordnance, so you could do ord pods and get that attack that you can add dice to, and then at the end of the squadron phase, you get that extra attack, which is with your printed armament too. So that's a red and a blue, although it's only distance 1. So, but yeah, I feel like that could stack. Let's see, Blue Hawk is the most popular. That one is treat your rear hull zones printed battery armament as 2 blue dice. So like Lucid Voice, that extra salvo, which is important because it also has you gain 1 weapons team icon in your upgrade bar. So you can take local fire control and get a salvo on this. Oh, I guess it's mostly about the when you salvo squad, you use your anti-squadron armament. So I guess also though anti-ship 2 blue dice isn't bad. Um,
But it's the weapons team slot too for Ruthless.
I feel like that's Ruthless mostly. Yeah, is everyone running Ruthless with Blue Hawk?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like it.
Uh,
Yeah, looks like it.
all right. Maybe my mind went to where I felt like the upgrade was pushing you, which was, do some salvo stuff, but that makes more sense. Okay, I guess Ruthless is just really hard to beat, especially like you have options like a TIE bomber is like 9 points and you can just use it to feed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the typical
So
cycle with something new is there's the low hanging fruit, like obvious stuff like Ruthless. And then there's the more subtle things like you're talking about, the salvo build aspect of it, which, I think eventually will kind of flesh itself out, but people tend to go with the low hanging stuff first a lot of times, not all the time, but
Yeah. And the last
Yeah.
title that someone at least took is while attacking a squadron, each of your unspent accuracy icons adds 1 damage to the damage total. So it's like SW7s, but just for squads. And I think that's pretty good, especially if you do any of the other dice add stuff. I mean, you could use AG2G, which I think we talked about, but it increases your anti-squadron armament by 1 blue die for this ship because it does have a red native one. And then while attacking a squadron, you may reroll 1 die in your attack pool. Or it works with LTTs. It would actually work with things like quad laser turrets if you have counter 1, Agent Callus adding anything. Yeah, so I mean, any dice you add, I feel like it just makes blue dice a lot more lethal. I guess it's still just not quite as good as Blue Hawk Ruthless Strategist.
Well, hold on. I wanted to mention that you might be able to do a Blue Hawk local fire control using decaps. Because if I'm not mistaken, decaps it lasts until the end of the round, so your 2 blue salvos would still go to long. So I wonder if there's anything there.
Oh, it is until the end of the round.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you have to activate at an early enough point for it to matter, but
But how hard is that? I
should-
mean, you want to
should do
flak anyway.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with red flak too. You don't have to be as close. I mean, red and blue, that's fairly forgiving. And then the
Or
last,
you could do you could keep ruthless and do Tua for reactive gunnery and kind of maybe split the baby a little bit and do both.
I was thinking about reactive gunnery, and I forgot about Tua because I was wondering how you get it. But I feel like the officer slot on these is really competitive unless you have
Yeah.
chosen to run 3.
It's tough. It's tough to beat Callus.
Callus, but well, the final Nexus card for Empire that does, I think, compete with Callus is the Officer General Ramodi. He is non-huge ship only because that was really toxic. But he, for 3 points, while attacking a squadron at close to medium range, your attacks cannot be obstructed. And I do think that this used to work at long range as well, but that was really unfun because, that's a lot of distance that your squads can't use a rock or a ship to, save themselves until they can come bomb you or do something.
Especially with red flak. That was not fun. That was rough.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we pulled that back.
Yeah, and then SSD with him was not fun. I can't imagine Pinky Pyro. I can't imagine that list with Ramodi on the SSD being fun.
Well, so somebody left the front door unlocked and Doty snuck in, and I think he's got some comments on the Lancer.
I do, in fact. So there's a couple builds I haven't heard people talk about and didn't pop up in this tournament, but I do think are worth mentioning. First would be with that Pulsar title, which is the one where you gain an ordnance. You can combine this with flak guns to get black dice, meaning that you can have double black as your anti-squadron, and then combine it with flechette torpedoes and a Ramadi or Callus of your choice, and you can start throwing triple black on a ship that has way more favorable arcs to do flacking than the Raider. So there's one build. The other one is you can do almost the same thing, but with Blue Hawk as well. So you can take AG2G, flat guns, ordnance experts, and Blue Hawk. So you essentially get 3 black flak with ordnance experts for the reroll, which pretty solid. And of course, that can combine with any other officer you want. So you can add Callus, you can add Ramadi, and you could put out some serious damage with that thing. So there are some builds even with the Lancers that are in the tournament right now that aren't being really used yet, and I think there's some opportunity there that we'll see them show up later.
Honestly, I like that black flak one with ordnance experts because, dude, I've seen double black flak just shred. I played against Andy Arkwelder's Anakin list. I was flying Blender, and Blender's squads are pretty beefy, and he shredded them. He deleted half of my squad ball, and yeah, it was vicious. So, and then you're not using Ruthless to ping your own squads if you're throwing black flak. And if you hit for 3, even if it's a brace ace, they're still going to take 2, and that's significant on squads. They can't keep taking 2 damage. That's strong.
Yeah. So there are some fun things and new opportunities you can unlock with the Lancer. I've been very happy looking at all the Starforge list building data at the variety I'm seeing come out of different Lancer builds. So I'm very excited to see more.
See, I'm a separatist player, so you say black flak, and I'm like, why would I turn my red flak into that? I want range. Like, I like AG2G. I think it's really good, but I just want to put link turbo lasers on this and see what I can do at range to someone's ace. I don't even know if that's a good idea. If you can get them at close range, you could definitely shred them. But I just like reaching out and deleting them, or mostly deleting them, from long range, soften them up for my squads, because I definitely going to run this with like 134. Basically
That is
everybody.
true.
LTT Callus sensor team is no joke.
Yeah. Get some serious stuff there. Or even
Yeah.
H9s, which I haven't really seen people use a lot yet, but I think there is also room for that too. Just being able to get that accuracy and then smite someone with your other dice is pretty handy.
Very true, and H9s works on crits, which is huge if you're not
Yep.
using the title that changes crits to damage.
Yeah, so with that triple black flak Lancer I was talking about earlier, if you throw in a Callus in there and you give him a blue, you can choose if you want to trade the extra black die for H9s. So then you can get essentially a guaranteed accuracy on your blue and double black on like every squad you hit. So there's some pretty nasty tech you can do with that.
Yeah, and for those playing along at home, H9s does not exhaust, so that is every squadron that you flak with that triple black, you are getting a guaranteed accuracy.
Yeah,
Which is
as long as you decide, oh well, my Callus is gonna instead of adding a black, he'll add a blue this time. So get pure damage on your generics, and then on that pesky scatter ace or even double brace aces that you don't like, just be like, all right, well, here's a free accuracy. I block your good token, take 2 damage, pretty much every time. Which, yeah, absolutely nasty, but. Of course, then you're taking a Lancer and you lose out against your ship firepower somewhat, so it can kind of balance out. But
yeah, it's we've been talking about probably a 70-ish point investment here, or 80 points. So it's
yeah,
not free.
as
What
a little
about
mod,
I don't know. Scott's is only 60 points with Agent Callus, A2 or AG2G, Blue Hawk, and Ruthless. That's only 60. That's not that much.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So his ISD is 175, the Lancer's 60, and then the Gazanti is 31 because it's carrying Bomber Command Center for all the bombers in his list. But I mean, one round of tangling with the flak from the Lancer and his squad ball is going to shred an opposing squad ball really badly. And it's not going to take much to mop it up after one round of engagement. And then he's got an ISD2 with Captain Nita and TRC and ion cannon batteries to shoot your ships with. So I think the Lancer is pretty balanced, and it adds a lot of unique, flavorful ways to accomplish killing squads, which I hate to see because I'm a squad player, but it's a very interesting ship. I like it.
I think the play has to be if you see a Lancer 134, or if I see a Lancer 134, you just have to focus down the Lancer as quickly as possible
Probably,
before it
yeah,
eats everything on every squad on your side of the board.
pretty
So
much.
what about the Furious title with H9s and like quad laser turrets? Then you're basically guaranteeing you'll always get that damage on your blue dice at least.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
That's just the way I think.
Definitely got a lot of options. Was there anything else on Empire we wanted to touch on?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, since Doty just joined us, Doty, have you seen any interesting matches that caught your eye, or were your matches interesting that you wanted to talk about, or do you just want to dive right into you wanted to talk about some Scum a little bit because you unfortunately couldn't make it last week when we talked about it.
I did. Well, I guess I can briefly talk about my match. So I played against Mr. Gaming Royale in the tournament, who was running a Doty Dauphine Lucre Hulk. This was the DCS, so the droid control variant, with full 134 of fighters. I think he had DFS and then 5 vultures and then 7 hyenas plus 2 gozantes. And let me tell you, I was running a scum fleet. It is appropriately named the Sykes Jank, and I'm gonna get into why I consider the fleet super janky in a bit. But going up against that fleet, I was a little scared because as part of my scum fleet, all of my squadrons are heavy. And I, like a fool, forgot to include advanced transponder net on my neutron star, meaning that I had literally zero way to block his bombers from bombing any of my ships. And that DCS, and let me tell you, I do think that it could maybe use a little buff, but that 7 squadron alpha strike going up to 8 after Sand Hill, it can just be absolutely nutty. You can activate all of your hyenas in one go if you want, and just wreck people. And you have that Dauphine reroll. So going into that match, I was a little terrified. And I was like, okay, I need to close the distance as fast as possible, because if I give him even 1 or 2 turns of bombing, like all my ships will be gone. And I need to essentially just flak him as much as I can. Now, the other thing is that the hyenas are also heavy, meaning that as long as I can pin vultures down a little bit, or at least just try to kill them, then I knew that it wouldn't be that big of a deal. We would just kind of be able to move around each other, and I wouldn't lock my bombers down, tying up his bombers. Um, so let me briefly go over my list in more detail, and then we'll actually go through and talk about the rest of the scum stuff. So my scum list, I have 3 ships. I have a Sea Rock Gozanti cruiser. Now this is the scum variant. This is not the CIS variant, though it's somewhat similar. So for 26 points, it has standard Gozanti stats for the whole, the flak, all the command squadron engineering, all that defense tokens, standard stuff. But then comes the upgrade bar. So this has an officer slot, a support team, a fleet support, and an ion cannon for 26 points. So a little different than your standard flotilla, like different than the GR75 as an example. You do gain access to a support team, meaning you can have, which I have on my list, a fighter coordination team flotilla, but you then lose out on the offensive retrofit slot. So your standard boosted comms, GR75 or Gozanti, or even reserve hangar deck isn't really a thing you can do on it. So it kind of balances itself out that way. Now, in my list, I actually don't even use the fleet support or the ion slot. The only one of those slots I fill, well, plus Hondo, of course, because you can't have a flotilla without Hondo, is fighter coordination team. Now, next, I have the Marauder. So the Marauder is specifically, I'm using the artillery corvette, and it is kind of, imagine an Architens that was front arc focused instead of side arc focused, but then it had all reds everywhere and was more expensive. And that's basically what we're talking about here. The Marauder artillery corvette it's 5-hull, it's got red flak, and it's got all reds everywhere. It's got a pretty decent maneuver chart, 2, 1, 1, and then 1, 0, 1. It has pretty solid defense tokens as well. It has an evade, a brace, a redirect, and a salvo. And it has a whopping 6 upgrade slots. So double officer, weapons team, offensive retrofit, and then 2 turbo lasers. So what does that mean? Because you may be looking at those stats and going, oh man, well, this thing's going to absolutely shred people. With 3 reds in the front, 2 reds on the side, 1 in the back. It doesn't have that much more firepower than a cheaper ship like, for example, even the Charger for Gar. So what you gain is the ability to stack tons and tons of upgrades onto your ship. Now, that does come with a trade-off, though. So one of the core things behind Scum, when we were designing the faction originally, is we wanted most ships to be extremely customizable. And there's obvious lore reasons for that, or just even theme reasons. Not every pirate warlord is going to have the same exact ship. But that does mean you can get to the point where you turn what should be a small that you would think you'd run pretty cheap into a huge points pinata, and you just absolutely load it with upgrades. And of course, in my list, instead of heeding that warning, I did exactly that, and my small is now 88 points. So I have one of the 2 titles, which is Charbidus. So this essentially, my printed shield values on my front, left, and right hull zones are increased by 1. So I go from 2 to 3 shields, which for a small, pretty solid. We've seen lots of use of this title mostly on flagships, funnily enough, but even just as like on a little support ship. Now, for me, since my fleet only has 3 ships and one's a flotilla, I was really worried about getting tabled. So I realized, well, kind of need to up the ante on my Marauder a bit. I have AG2G, as has been discussed before, even though that is going to get a change pretty soon. I did want to take advantage of it just to get red-blue for my flak. I also was able to take LTT because the Marauder has Bombard, so I could get a reroll on my reds as well. So now I'm rolling red-blue flak with an LTT reroll, and if I really need to smite some poor guy, I can do the LTT exhaust. I have Ruthless Strategists on there too, so not only am I throwing crazy flak dice, I'm also being able to ping Ruthless. Then, my last 2 upgrades are Uri Fen, who some of you may recognize from Empire War. He has a pretty interesting ability. So his thing is when a friendly squadron at distance 1 to 5 would suffer damage other than from an attack, you could discard a token from his card to reduce the damage total by 1. So this doesn't really affect your main attacks, obviously. It's not damage reduction the same way someone like Axe is. But Ruthless Strategists, Purgils, Exogorts, Anakin and Tennum Splash. There are some other things where Uri is able to work on and essentially reduce damage that comes other than from an attack. And he has 3 tokens on this card, so pretty decent. He can do some good work. For me, it's really only getting 2 or 3 free uses of Ruthless, or if there's one of those single Exogorts and they roll the 1 damage, and I'm worried they're gonna flip my squad, which since I have a bunch of rogues, which we'll talk about in a second, I was a little worried about. Uri can kind of help me out there. And then lastly on that ship, so again, 88 point small here, we have Talon Card. So Talon Card is one of my favorite cards right now. No pun intended. He did have an old ability that we thought was all right, but we gave him a new ability that I think is very interesting. So after deploying fleets, you may choose one ship or up to 2 friendly non-rogue squadrons. If you chose a ship, they must execute a speed 1 maneuver with a yaw of 1. If you chose 1 or more squadrons, you may move them so that they are at distance 1 to 3 of their current location. So what does that mean? Well, your ship can move on right after deploying fleets, so even before the first round, which has some fun interactions with certain objectives that I'll talk about in a second. And if you pick squadrons, you can move those squadrons up the board. So there are some interesting combos in there with some other Scum upgrades. In my fleet, I mostly use it to push my Sea Rock up because it has fighter coordination team. So not only am I moving my flotilla up, I'm also bumping up 2 of my squads along with it. All right, then lastly for my ships,
Oh
I
wait,
have a
can
neutron
I
star. Oh
can I
yeah, go
flag
ahead.
one other thing on Talon Card? An interesting quirk is the squads have to be friendly, but the ship does not have to be friendly.
Yes.
So
you
you can
Yep.
yeah.
You can mess with people. I have done that depending on the matchup. Sometimes it's worth getting a ship to move a little closer. So then lastly, I have a neutron star. So the neutron star it's a pretty simple ship. It also very expensive for a medium. It's got 4 defense tokens, double brace, double redirect, 7 hull, double blue flak, 3 command, 2 squad, 4 engineering, and it has 2 red, 2 blue on the front, on the sides, and then 1 red, double blue in the rear. Now it loses. So if you've heard of the dreadnoughts in the Republic, these are somewhat similar. You gain an extra redirect and defensive retrofits, but you gain speed 3, but you only get a click at the first joint, and they come in at a whopping 79 points with 6 upgrade slots. So in this one, I have an officer, a weapons team, double defensive retrofit, offensive retrofit, and then turbo laser. So after you've fully loaded out, this medium is going to be like 140 points. Mine is 143 points. So yeah, you get a lot of bang for your buck. But with only 2 shields on the sides for a medium, and when you've loaded it out, it becomes so expensive. It isn't actually as good as you think. Though it is tanky, but it can't really kill things. So I've loaded out mine with Expert Shield Tech, obviously, for the double redirect. One of the interesting new cards for Scum, Magistrate Oro. So essentially, he works on non-Mandalorian squads. He's kind of like flight controllers, but he adds a red dice and then allows you to re-roll a red, whether you've activated a squad or not. So kind of like funky flight controllers, you can add a red to your attack against either a ship or a squad. Though if you add it against a ship, you then have to cancel a die, which is good on the uglies, which I'll go over in a second. So he's pretty interesting. He's 7 points, so I mean he's not cheap. And red dice, even with a reroll, some less consistent than blues, depending on what you're doing. So there is a bit of a trade-off there. He's a fun card. Next, I have RBD and LTT. Smuggler's Cache is my defensive retrofit of choice. So this card, very interesting. You gain an additional command token more than your command value. So that means you can hold 4. After deploying fleets, in this case, because it's a command 3 ship, I can choose 4 tokens of at least 2 different types and place them on the card. And at the start of either the ship or status phases, I can discard any number of tokens from the card, the game matching tokens. So, interesting card. Works mostly on smalls, obviously, because you get the extra command token. But then also, you can gain these tokens when you need to trigger an ability, or right at the end of the round if you have an exhaustible upgrade that requires a refresh, you can pull a token off the card then. So pretty interesting card, 5 points, but it is taking up a defensive retrofit slot, which in Scum can be pretty rare. So in my Neutron Star, it has double defensive retrofit, so not that crazy. But yeah, very fun card. And then lastly, my title, my beloved title. So there's this comic book that has a Neutron Star in it. And the Neutron Star is by the name of Ohms's Incredible Traveling Starport. So we have a title for the Neutron Star of Ohms's Incredible Traveling Starport. Pretty simple effect. You can be assigned any number of command tokens of any types. So the Smuggler's Cache ability to give me an extra token doesn't really matter here. When a friendly ship at distance 1 to 5 reveals a command dial, it can discard a command token assigned to you to gain a matching command token. So not only can I get a bunch of tokens, I can then pass them out to any ship, essentially. So very, very handy. Now in my fleet, as you can imagine, I can do some really fun things with it. So I can use Smuggler's Cache at the start of the first turn and Hondo to gain a bunch of tokens and then bank them all on the Neutron Star. And whenever I need them later in the game, I could just start passing them out to ships. So very fun little gimmick there. Then lastly, I have my Admiral. So Jared Sykes has the ability when a friendly squadron begins its activation at distance 1 to 2 of a friendly ship, it gains Rogue until the end of its activation. So interesting. It doesn't let you, well, while you can activate squads during the ship phase, you don't really want to. You really want to hold them back so they can gain Rogue during the squadron phase. Now, it does mean if a ship activates squads at distance 1 to 2 of it, they do gain Rogue. So for abilities that trigger off of Rogue, for example, if an enemy ace has something like you may add a die against a squadron with Rogue, any squads that are activated at 1 to 2 of a ship will trigger that ability. So you do need to be careful about that. But for the most part, I mean, he's a pretty simple admiral. He's a little too cheap at the moment. We're probably going to be giving him a points reduction soon, but he's 28 points as he is in my list. And then come my squads. So again, I have all heavy squads. I have 2 ST-70 assault ships. Think of them as LATs, but bad. They have double red, double blue as their ASA, but only a single blue as their anti-ship, with assault, counter 1, and heavy. So you do gain some theoretical really high spikes in anti-squad damage, especially when you combine them with Oro for that reroll. But the single blue for your raid delivery is really, really risky. So, I mean, you only have a 50% chance of triggering that. So, not too great. I have 2 of them. Then come the Skip Ray Blast Boats. So these guys are 2 speed, 7 hull, blue-black anti-squad, blue-black anti-ship, with bomber, counter 2, and heavy. So kind of like an Arc 170, if you took away some of its firepower against squads, you boost up its firepower against ships a bit more, but then you give it heavy and you increase it by a point. So it's pretty balanced. They are quite strong when you combine them with other abilities, but if you noticed in my list, while I have 4 of these skip rays, I have no BCC, and that has bit me in the butt. Then I have 3 ugly squadrons. So these are 3 hull, 3 speed, with rainbow as their ASA, so red, blue, black, red anti-ship, heavy, and 7 points. So a Z95 with better anti-squadron consistency, but no swarm. So they while the damage spike is less, they are more consistent prior to any form of additional modification. But again, they're heavy. And then lastly, this is kind of where the rest of my fleet comes together. Mazine Hinette. So she's a Feline bounty hunter in the ship Silent Debt, which is an AEG 77 Vigo. So think of them as like a decimator that doesn't have rogue. She has an ability while a friendly heavy squadron at distance 1 is attacking a ship with 1 or more raid tokens, it may add a black die to its attack pool, and if it does, it must choose and cancel 1 die. So her stats, again, 3 speed, 8 hull, 1 blue and 3 black anti-squadron, red double blue anti-ship, so again, similar to the Decimators, just with the red, counter 1 heavy, with a single brace and 23 points. So, really, what is my list? I have a tanky brick that can't really put out much damage. I have an FCT Mimi Flotilla. Oh, I actually even forgot. Merchant 1 is my flotilla title. This one's a fun one. When an enemy ship at distance 1 to 5 activates, you may discard this card to execute a 2-speed maneuver. So, that means theoretically, not only can my ship move, I could move 3 times in a single turn between Talon card right after deployment, my normal speed 3 move, and then my 2-speed move from Merchant 1, meaning I can go 6 speed turn 1, which absolutely hilarious. Should you do that? No, I don't recommend it, but you can, and that's the fun part. So I've got an FCT flotilla, I got a tanky brick, I got a guy who can flak a lot, all heavy squads that get boosted by Mazine's ability, so I can get some black dice, but it's triggered only off of a 50% chance on a single ST70 that I get 1 hit. So if I don't get that raid token, I have no rerolls. Now, spoiler alert, in my game against Mr. Gaming Royale, where I did end up barely clinching a victory, I think it was an 8-3 because I was able to blow up the Lucre Hulk. I did not trigger Mazine's ability to get that reroll against ships until literally the second to last attack of the game. So, little risky, hence why my fleet is janky. Now I won't cover all of my objectives, but I will posit a question to people that are listening. Is there any kind of objective where you may want to, I don't know, rescue something or someone that starts at distance 5 from your board edge, where a ship that could go speed 6 round 1 could be really handy? Just a thought, throwing that out there. But yeah, my game against the Lucre Hulk was brutal. First off, I think we picked Marked for Destruction, so there were dust fields that kind of blocked me off from doing things. And then in addition, there was some Purgils that were able to block my Marauder from being able to flak his entire squad ball, which was just abysmal. The Hyenas nearly killed it in 1 turn. I think there were only 4 activated, or 5, but it was nearly dead. I think it survived on like 1 or 2 hull with an evade and maybe a brace left with no shields. So it absolutely got walloped from full health down to almost dead in 1 go. Then on top of that, my dice were just abysmal. I flacked his entire squad ball with my Marauder before it died, and I think there were maybe 10 or 11 squads that I flacked. I did a total of like 11 or 12 damage. So like 1 damage per squad. It was abysmal. There was 1 guy I killed, but I should have been able to do like half damage on his whole squad ball, and I got absolutely schwacked. It was so sad. And yeah, so then eventually I was able to get my squads over to kind of kill his vultures a bit. I was able to flak most of his hyenas, so they were on low enough hull that my neutron star could kind of sneak into a side arc of his Lucre Hulk, and it basically just sat there and did its best to shoot 2 damaged little trickles at it, while my bombers did their best to do some work with the rogue. So ended in a barely win for me. Thank you, Mr. Gaming Royale, for the fun game. But Yeah, absolutely brutal slugfest and very typical of Scum, where you come up with an absolutely jank list with all heavy squads with no advanced transponder net, and you just kind of figure out how to make it work with Oro to get some red dice rerolls, all heavy squads with Mazine nets, a crazy flak boat, ridiculous fighter coordination team, speed 6 flotilla, and just some absolute jank, and you have a good time and expect that most of your stuff will die every game, but that's kind of the fun part. So
Yeah, Scum
So-
has a lot of variety and a lot of interesting things they can do. A lot of niche little interactions and different mechanics. They're very interesting.
I'm looking forward to hearing your battle report when you try your fleet, Corsic.
Yeah, I was hoping to be able to get one in before this this recording, but it didn't work out. But yeah, no, they're very interesting. Well, we're at around the hour mark, so we should probably wrap it up. I wanted to last week we announced that there's going to be that tournament in Ottawa on May 23rd and 24th. And when they put out more details, we'll definitely put those out there. I also wanted to let everybody know that those same 2 days, we're going to have a 2-day tournament here in Northern California in Burlingame, which is a little bit south of San Francisco. It's going to be ARC rules, but legacy content will be allowed. So bring on your penises, bring on your Architins and the commanders and all the interesting stuff. It'll be fun. We had one of those in the fall. We didn't have as big a turnout as we hoped, but it was still very fun. And then we do have a local tournament in Fairfield, which is kind of the North Bay area, on the 22nd of this month, so next weekend. And that's going to be at Mad Alpaca Games, and I'll put the T5 in the link for that. So hopefully people can make it out to these tournaments that are out there. And if anybody else wants to get their tournament announced on here, I'm more than happy to do it and help everybody out. So with that, unless you guys have anything else we needed to touch on, I think we'll call it a podcast. So hope you enjoyed the episode, and next week we'll talk about the final results of round 2 and where that puts everybody. And I think we're going to be talking about another faction that we haven't touched on yet. That's the plan anyways. So stick around for that, and we'll see you next time.